Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, good friends. I hope this finds you in good health and secure. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking a few seconds to like and subscribe. It's a bodhisattva act. It helps propagate these resources, right? The website, the bookstore, so on and so forth. All the links in the description. We are continuing with the apparitional city, known by other titles as well, but they all revolve around this parable. I don't know if I'd call it a parable. Well, expedient means, skillful devices, whatever you call them. They're stories designed to illustrate, as this translation shows, the workings of our samsaric mind versus our Buddha mind, yeah? So to continue where we left off, this is, I believe, Tathagata Shakyamuni speaking. Yeah, he's doing his predictions and his around. Okay, therefore, 500 myriad of Kodas of great Brahmas went toward the northwest with their palaces, carrying heavenly flowers in their robes to inquire about this phenomena. Remember, all the earth quaked in 6 different directions, and all these auspicious signs, and there must be a Buddha in the world. So let's go find this. Let's go see what this is about. They saw the Tathagata Mahabinjan Bibu on the terrace of enlightenment, sitting on the lion's seat under the Bodhi tree. And as I said in the last video, not the last video, but the last video on this translation, it's rather auspicious or suspicious or obvious that Shakyamuni is recounting his own path to enlightenment as the story of this other predicted Buddha, yeah, or enlightenment. Basically indicating that the process is not dissimilar, right? He was respectfully surrounded by humans and such non-humans as devas, nagas, kings, gandharvas, kimnaras, and mahoragas. They also saw the 16 princes requesting the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma, of the experience of Buddha-ness, yeah? Then all the Brahmins bowed until their foreheads touched the Buddha's feet, and they circled around him 100,000 times. Why does that sound like I've read it before? He repeats himself, doesn't he? No doubt for the purpose of remembering the lesson, because this is all oral, right? Then all the Brahmas, they scattered heavenly flowers on the Buddha, and the flowers they scattered were piled up as high as Mount Sumeru. They also paid homage to the Buddha's Bodhi tree. Having recently offered the Buddha flowers, they presented their palaces to him, saying, "Please accept the palaces we now offer you and benefit us through your compassion." Then the great Brahmas spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison before the Buddha. "O great sage Deva of Devas, we now bow to the one whose voice is as beautiful as the Kalavinka birds and who has compassion for sentient beings. The Bhagavat is truly extraordinary and can only be seen once in an extremely long time. 180 kalpas have passed away fruitlessly, and no Buddhas have appeared during this time. The worlds have been filled with people in the 3 troubled states of being, and the devas have decreased. The 3 troubled states of being, if you look in previous passages, talks about the 3 worlds, right? This this samsaric condition of the cycle of birth and death, attached, clinging. The Buddha has now appeared in the world to be the eyes of the sentient beings. He will be the refuge of the world and will seek to protect all as the father of sentient beings. Remember, we talked about parent, teacher, and sovereign. Also in the Buddhism Reference book. He is the compassionate benefactor. Because of our past merits, we now have the good fortune to be able to meet the Bhagavat. Understand, I'll remind you again, Buddhism is about the mind. So this isn't about walking up and meeting this guy floating in the air, or on a lion's seat, or on a lotus flower. It's your mind that you're meeting Buddha. Thereupon, having praised the Buddha in verse, the great Brahman said this, O Bhagavat, we entreat you to turn the wheel of the Dharma out of your compassion for all and save, or liberate, should say, sentient beings. And again, I want to make this point because as you're reading this is very much a story and like a conversation. They said this and he heard that. This is the very thing we play out when we chant to our mandala. We are entreating our Buddha-ness, through our Gohonzon mind, right? We are entreating our Buddha, our invocation of Buddha, more correctly, to inform us, to give us the Dharma, the experience, Dharma experience of Buddha-ness. With every daimoku, when we say na-mu, we are, O Bhagavat, we entreat you to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Na-mu. We are present and we are ready. Na-mu. And what does the experience of the Dharma sound like? Myoho Renge Kyo. We invoke you to inform us. This is what we're doing when we practice our daimoku at our altar. Then the Brahma spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison. O great sage, make us very happy. Turn the wheel of the Dharma. The wheel, the cycle. But not as a samsaric attachment, but rather as a samsaric enlightened understanding. The Bodhisattva, the Buddha way. The Bodhisattva is the samsaric instantiation of Buddha-ness for self and others. The boundary disappears. Everyone is a good friend while you're being a good friend, right? Being a parent, being a teacher, being a sovereign. Reveal the characters of all dharmas, all experiences. Liberate the suffering beings. If sentient beings hear this dharma, they will attain the path and be born as devas. In other words, they will instantly, in the next moment, awaken. These beings in the troubled states of being will decrease, while those who persevere in the good will increase. Right? There's that aura of influence that I talk about all the time. If you turn the wheel of the Dharma, if you behave, if you live your life in the Buddha way, then those in your environments will move toward, whether they're conscious of it or not, either toward practicing or toward learning about the practice slowly or immediately, depending on the karma of the person. They will be influenced toward whatever it is you're doing, because it's that powerful, that influential. Then the Tathagata Maha, long name, silently consented. Furthermore, O monks, the great Brahmas in the 500s of thousands of kotis of lands in the south each saw their palaces illuminated as they had never been before. Joyful and ecstatic, they were struck with wonder. They immediately assembled to discuss this matter together, asking, "Why have our palaces been illuminated?" Duh. At that time, there was a great Brahma called Sudharma. He spoke to the assembly of Brahmas in verse, saying, "Our palaces are illuminated with brilliant light. There must be a reason for this, and we should seek its source. We have not seen such a phenomenon during the past hundreds of thousands of kalpas. Has a deva of great merit been born? Or has a Buddha appeared in the world?" Thereupon 500 myriads of kotas of great Brahmas went toward the north with their palaces to inquire about this phenomenon. Forget the logistics of moving a palace. Just, you see how this is storytelling, right? Okay. To inquire about this phenomenon, carrying heavenly flowers in their robes, they saw the Tathagata Mahabhinana Bhibu on the terrace of enlightenment, sitting on the lion's seat under the Bodhi tree. He was respectfully surrounded by humans and such non-humans as devas, nagas, kings, Gandhara. The repetition again. They also saw the 16 princes requesting the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Then all the great Brahmas bowed until their foreheads touched the Buddha's feet, and then circled around him 100,000 times. Boy, this was a long day, yeah? They scattered heavenly flowers on the Buddha, and the flowers they scattered piled up as high as Mount Sumeru. They also paid homage to the Buddha's Bodhi tree. Having entered the Buddha, or revered the Buddha with flowers, they offered their palaces to him, saying, "Please accept the palaces we now offer you and benefit us through your compassion." Is it just me, or is it starting to sound like this repetition is like daimoku? With each exhortation, please turn the wheel of the Dharma. Let us experience the Dharma, the enlightenment, the Buddha-ness. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Over and over. Like every corner of your mind is responding and taking action to cleanse, awaken, pursue clarity, Buddha-ness. Yeah? You get it, right? Then the great Brahmas spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison before the Buddha. O destroyer of afflictions. Right? So every one of these mental groupings come at this slightly differently, but with the same desire. Right? This group is talking about destroyer of afflictions. Not much difference than the other group that said get beings in the three types of suffering, or three worlds, stuck in the three, right? They're all talking about the same thing. It is extremely difficult to meet the Bhagavat. We are now meeting the Buddha for the first time since 130 kalpas have passed away. Please satisfy sentient beings who are suffering from hunger and thirst by pouring down the rain of the Dharma. O one possessed of immeasurable wisdom, Buddha wisdom, whom we have never met before. Today we have encountered the one who appears as rarely as the Adambara flower blooms. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the Adambara, if you look it up, from Wikipedia or wherever, you'll find out that it has a few interpretations. Some say it only blossoms every 500 years. Some say only every 5,000 years. There seems to be a flower in, I believe it's in Africa. I'm not sure. Probably in India. That this is either based on or in reference to. And it does take many years for it to blossom, but the 500, the 5,000, it's just a matter of storytelling, right? As the Adambara flower blooms, our palaces are beautifully adorned by this ray of light. We entreat you to accept them out of your great compassion. Thereupon, having praised the Buddha in verse, the great Brahma said this, O Bhagavat, we request that you turn the wheel of the Dharma, thus causing the Devamaras, Brahmas, Shramanas, and Brahmins to be at ease and liberating all of them. That Shramana term, you've heard that before. Nichiren has used it. Or it's in one of his Gosho, whether he wrote it or one of his disciples wrote it. I think it might be a question, but under the title it says, written by Nichiren Shramana of Japan. So, then the great Brahman spoke these verses wholeheartedly and in unison. Here we go again. We entreat you, O best of devas and humans, to turn the wheel of the highest Dharma, beat the drum of the great Dharma, blow the conch of the great Dharma, rain the rain of the great Dharma everywhere, and save or liberate incalculable sentient beings. We have all come to request that you expound it with your profound voice. Then the Tathagata Mahajanana Bibu silently consented. Okay, I will do that. The very same thing happened in the worlds from the southwestern and lower regions, as well as those in the other directions. He saved us another repetition, but we get it, right? Then all the great Brahmas in the 500 myriad of kotas of lands in the upper region saw their palaces illuminated with a light that had never existed before. Joyful and ecstatic, they were struck with wonder. They immediately assembled to discuss this matter together, saying, "Why have our palaces illuminated?" I spoke too soon. There was a great Brahma in that assembly called Shikin. He spoke to the assembly of Brahmas in verse, saying, "We have all had all our palaces been brightly illuminated with this light of virtuous dignity and adorned with this unprecedented way. We have never seen such a wonderful phenomenon. Has a deva of great merit been born? Or has a Buddha appeared in the world? Let's grab our palaces and go, right?" Thereupon 500 myriads of kotas of great Brahmas, went into the lower regions with their palaces to inquire about this phenomena, carrying heavenly flowers in their robes. They saw the Tathagata Mahabhishnadana Bibu on the terrace of enlightenment, sitting on the lion's seat under the Bodhi tree. He was respectfully surrounded by humans and such non-humans as devas, nagas, kings, gandharvas, kimnaras, and mahoragas. They also saw the 16 princes requesting the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma. Get settled here. How did I lose my place? Oh, okay. Then all the great Brahmas bowed their heads, foreheads touching the Buddha's feet, circumambulated him 100,000 times. They scattered heavenly flowers on the Buddha. The flowers scattered as high as Mount Sumeru. They also paid homage to the Buddha's Bodhi tree, having reverently offered him flowers. They presented their palaces to the Buddha, saying, "Please accept the palaces we now offer you and benefit us through your compassion." Then all the great Brahmas spoke these verses wholeheartedly in unison before the Buddha. How splendid it is to meet the Buddhas, the great sages who deliver the world, who diligently work to get sentient beings out of the hell of the triple world. The triple world. We've already talked about it, right? The best of devas and humans, whose universal wisdom, out of compassion for everyone, opens the gate to immortality. And we talked about immortality as well, right? We're not talking about eternal lives here. We're talking about ungluing ourselves from the cycle of birth and death. That mortality. When we experience Buddha-ness, time becomes irrelevant. So mortality isn't an issue. It's about living in the moment and into the next, period. Everything is happening. A whole universe is happening moment to moment to moment. The experience of Buddha-ness is like this. Yes? And extensively saves all. It liberates all. Liberates what? Liberates from what? Samsara. Liberates from the mortal perception of momentum. The mortalness of being is the craving and clinging. Follow? We want to be liberated from that so we can experience everything in total, in every moment, as it is occurring. Since olden times, olden? I wonder. These translations can be funny. Since olden times, immeasurable kalpas have passed away in vain, without the presence of the Buddha. Well, get off your asses and invoke Buddha. Why are they always waiting for some one to come and tow them along, right? That's going to change in this very sutra. In the time before the Bhagavad appears, the 10 directions are in constant darkness. Why? That's just laziness, right? But they don't understand that yet, evidently. Those in the three troubled states of being increase, and the Asuras also flourish, right? Because as people get lazy, and they fall into their patterns and habits of clinging and craving and amassing and possessing and greed, anger, and foolishness, then the Asuras, of course, all sorts of manipulations, even without trying, just manifest in those worlds, in those influences, and you have the mess of human violence and the politic and avarice and so on and so forth. So yeah, nobody's working on their enlightenment. The devas decrease all the more. Any enlightenment, any guiding lights, they're very unique and far between. And when they die, many of them fall into those troubled states. So even the most positive influences just join the fray in samsara. Many of them fall into those troubled states, having never heard the teaching from the Buddha. Right, authoritarian thinking. Somebody has to tell me to get my head out of my butt because I don't know. Exactly, Chloe. I don't know if you hear her. She's having a hard time breathing today. All of them are always behave badly, not following the Eightfold Path, obviously. And their physical power and wisdom decreases. Because of their erring deeds, they lose happiness or any notion of it. Abiding in the teachings of false views, they know nothing of good conduct. Deprived of the Buddha's inspiration, because, we have to have that. The Buddha's inspiration is in your own mind. So if you're not paying attention to it, well, who's at fault? They fall into the troubled states of being. Duh. After a very long time, the Buddha has now appeared as the eye of the world. It is out of compassion for sentient beings that the Buddha appears in the world. Transcending everything, the Buddha has attained complete enlightenment. We are all extremely happy and all of the other beings joyfully acclaim this unprecedented experience. All of our palaces are beautifully adorned by this ray of light. We now offer them to the Bhagavat. Please accept them out of your compassion. By the universal transference of this merit, may we and all other beings together attain the Buddha path. Oh, you think you're going to buy your way in? Okay. Shakyamuni is going to have to straighten this out, yeah? Thereupon the 500 myriad of Kotis of great Brahmas, having praised the Buddha in verse, each spoke to him, saying, O Bhagavat, we strongly entreat you to turn the wheel of the Dharma, give ease to many, and enable them to attain the path. Then all the great Brahmins spoke in verse, O Bhagavat, turn the wheel of the Dharma, beat the drum of the Dharma of immortality, save, liberate the suffering sentient beings, and reveal the path to nirvana. We strongly entreat you to accept our request, and out of your compassion and with your wonderful voice, expound the Dharma. Nyo ho renge kyo. Isn't that what they're saying? With your voice, chant, sing, that you have perfected over immeasurable kalpas. It's so blindingly obvious when you know what you're reading about, yeah? Without knowing Nichiren's enlightenment and Tendai and the whole scholarship, our Lotus Sutra practice, you first come to this and you read it and you go, is this a Alibaba and the 40 Thieves? What? It's just so... storytelling, it's hard to relate to. But once you learn the terminology and you start to gain your wisdom about what is the target here, what are we doing, then you come back and you read this, no matter what the translation, and you go, I see what he's getting at here. I mean, this is 2,700 years old. People probably spoke a little differently in India at the time. And this is a translation of translations. But still, it's obvious what it's saying, right? Let's continue a little further. And then the Tathagata Mahabhishnadana Bibu, I'll never get used to saying that one, acceded to the request made by all the great Brahmas from the 10 directions and the 16 princes. He then immediately turned 3 times the Dharma wheel of the 12 spokes that no Shramanas, Brahmas, Devamaras, Brahmas, or any other being in the world could turn. Here it comes. He taught, this is suffering. This is the origination of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering, and this is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering, i.e. the Four Noble Truths. He also extensively taught the Dharma of the 12-linked chain of dependent origination, the Nidana. This is all in the Buddhism Reference book, by the way. Conditioned states are dependent on ignorance. Consciousness is dependent on conditioned states. Name and form are dependent on consciousness. The 6 sense fields are dependent on name and form. Contact is dependent on the 6 sense fields. Feelings are dependent on contact. Remember, contact is visual, oral, also taste, feel, right? It's not all physical. It's just form. Craving is dependent on feelings. Oh, gee. That's obvious. Grasping, clinging, is dependent on craving. right? Get it, get it, get it, get it. Don't let it get away. More, more, more. Becoming is dependent on grasping. That's very important. Becoming is different than being. Becoming is a form of grasping to cling to the idea of something, whereas being is being engrossed in moment to moment. It may seem subtle, but it's quite profound. Birth is dependent on becoming, and as I've said many times, the very instantiation of a human being to emerge a mind is built from grasping, clinging, craving. It's dependent origination. This is why we're just so profoundly samsaric. It takes effort to awaken the Gohonzon mind and allow Buddha-ness to flood through. When name and form, when ignorance ceases, the conditional states cease. In other words, when you achieve Buddha-ness through your practice, you're no longer ignorant about how to extricate yourself from this samsaric processes, yeah? When conditioned states cease, then consciousness ceases, right? What happens when we die? Ceases. When consciousness ceases, then name and form cease. When name and form cease, then the six sense fields cease. When the six sense fields cease, then contact ceases. When contact ceases, then feelings cease. When feelings cease, then craving ceases. When craving ceases, then grasping ceases. When grasping ceases, then becoming ceases. Pay attention, reincarnationists. No. When becoming ceases, then birth ceases. Moment. When birth ceases, then old age, illness, death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and distress cease. There is no samsara, and without samsara, there can be no sentient mind, no experience of the Dharma experience of Buddha-ness. Gone, done, cease. It's pretty clear. When the Buddha explained this Dharma to the great assembly of the Devas and humans, at that time 600 myriads of kotis of nayutas of people, because they were not attached to any existent thing, became free of all corruption. All of them perfected profound meditations, the 3 sciences, the 6 transcendent powers, and were endowed with the 8 liberations. When he taught the Dharma for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th thousands of myriads of kotis of nayutas of sentient beings equal to the sands of the Ganges River, who were not attached to any existent thing, became free of all corruptions. Innumerable, immeasurable, incalculable Shravakas followed in their turn. At that time, the 16 princes who were still young renounced household life and became Shramaneras. They got on the path to remove ignorance and become perfected in the teachings of Buddha-ness, of Buddha. All their faculties were sharp, and their wisdom was penetrating. They had paid homage to hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotas of Buddhas, practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity, and sought highest complete enlightenment. And by the way, when it says they paid homage to hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotas of Buddhas, do you realize that this is what you're doing with each daimoku? So however many daimoku you express, you are paying homage to all those who are enlightened, kotas of Buddhas, right? It's storytelling, but it's also based in, again, how the mind works, how profound a mechanism a sentient mind actually is. They all spoke to the Buddha saying, and then we'll close after this little thing. O Bhagavat, all of these immeasurable thousands of myriads of kotas of Shravakas of great merit have all attained perfection. O Bhagavat, you should also expound the teaching of highest complete enlightenment to us. Hearing it, we shall practice it. O Bhagavat, we aspire for the wisdom and insight of the Tathagata. The Buddha himself knows what is deep in our minds. Yeah, I'm going to save his response in the ensuing conversation for the next video. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope that you're getting something out of it. For me, I just want you to understand how to read this stuff. I think that's why I created this resource in all of its forms, videos and podcasts and free stuff, information on so on and so forth. Because to me, if you're going to understand, because you're going to have doubts and you're going to question all the time, how does this work? Why does this work? Why am I doing it? What's the point? All of those annoying questions that are just going to come up. Knowing how to understand these books and the sutras, no matter who translate them, and you see these themes they just come out. They come right through. And always, always, always remember that it's a discussion of how sentient mind works. You know how you dream? And you try to figure out what your dreams mean? Well, your dreams are pretty disjointed. They jump all over the place, but they're trying to do the same thing as these stories are. It's just that the stories are more focused, repetitive, like a recurring dream. But there's a profound meaning to each and every one of them. And if you learn the vocabulary, I know I keep sounding like I'm promoting the book, and the second volume will be coming. It's probably going to take me some time, though, to put together enough without just stuffing it full of baloney, right? Meaningful terms that we'll run into, like the triple world, which is in volume 2. Sorry. I may post it early just as a downloadable, just to extend the first volume, but I'm not going to publish it until I have at least a couple hundred pages, right? I think the volume 1 is almost 300 pages, so we'll try to at least match that. Anyway, it has to be useful information or it's not really information, right? Anyway, I'm babbling on. I just want to encourage you, keep your practice strong, be kind to yourself, right? Take care of your health. If you're kind to yourself, you'll naturally be kind to others. It's kind of how it works, just like the practice. The more you pursue to meet Buddha, the more others will be curious about what it is you're doing. Right? So, don't forget the free podcast, the free documents all over threefoldlotus.com. Patrons, you support us with donations. That's immeasurably valuable and merit creating. So thank you all for being bodhisattvas, supporting this endeavor. Keep your practice strong. Savor it. It's precious. And I'll see you in the next one. Okay? All right. Bye for now.